back to the London Architect podcast, everyone's favourite podcast in construction, design and architecture and engineering. I have a guest with me today. His name is Mr. Joshua Prescott. He works at Multiplex. Josh, would you like to introduce yourself?
My name's Josh. We've got a couple of audience members here, so if there's any sort of laughing, that's why.
They are huge fans of the podcast.
Huge fans of the poddy. They begged to be here. But my name's Josh. I work at Multiplex, which is a main contractor. I'm currently on their grad scheme in my first 5 months, and I'm currently working as a graduate design manager at Elephant and Castle, UAL.
And are you excited to be on your first podcast?
I'm so excited. I've been telling all of my colleagues.
Yeah. Some big fans.
Some of my big fans.
They're in the room with us today.
They are.
They're very excited. I think they've got some questions for you as well. And but if you do hear a little giggle,
it wasn't us.
Then it wasn't us. It was them. And you might hear a pause in the audio after that, which means that they've just been kicked out into the common room. But on that note, let's begin.
Let's go.
So, Josh, I thought we could start off by explaining how we know each other a little bit.
How do we know each other?
Yeah. Well,
we went to uni together.
Yeah. Different universities, though.
We're in the same sort of
city.
Also live in the same area, same city. Friends of friends, and now just friends.
Yeah, exactly.
Pretty much.
What a roller coaster!
What a roller coaster. Yeah. That's pretty much it, I'd say.
Yeah. Okay. Let's go to your career journey so far then.
Okay.
Brief overview, please.
Brief overview. I'll make it super brief. So, left uni with a part one, was sort of on track to do the full chartership, do my year out, go back and do a master's. Got a job in my local area at a small practice, worked on some really interesting projects, got to the end of that year placement, decided it wasn't really for me, / potentially would be good to sort of broaden my horizons before committing to another master's and potentially, like 3 or 4 more years in sort of studies and trying to get to that full chartership position. So then moved to a building surveying company where I worked as an assistant project manager.
What company?
BMP. That's just Tunbridge Wells.
Okay.
Little Tunbridge Wells surveyor. Did some small projects there in Tunbridge Wells, which was pretty interesting. Did a Pure Gym in Haywards Heath, which was really interesting. And then applied for some graduate roles as well as sort of entry-level PM roles within construction, obviously, but in London. And then landed Multiplex, which I was very happy about. Being project manager. I'm sure everyone who's listening would know this.
Yeah. Well,
maybe not. Maybe not.
A lot of our audience are
up and coming.
Yeah,
which is amazing.
Under 18.
Talking about that at some point.
Yeah.
Now I'm working at a main contractor on a grad scheme.
Why do you like Multiplex? What's so good about it?
It's just one of the biggest construction companies in the country. Does some of the biggest jobs in London, and that's really interesting. Doing big jobs, sort of shaping the city skyline. Quite cool. Yeah, I mean, definitely. It's not bragging rights by any means, but it's cool to work at.
I think it is.
It's cool to work at a company that do big projects and do really interesting projects. Yeah. Also, just a great company.
Do you feel like you have an important role?
I do, actually. I've only been there for a short amount of time, but I'm working with quite a small group of people. It's quite a small team relative to the rest of the company. So, I feel like I do.
So, are you on like a project management team?
So, no, there's a big mix of us. So, we've got commercial guys like QSs, quantity surveyors, commercial managers. We've got site managers, construction managers. So, everyone's in a managerial role, managing our supply chains, all of our subcontractors. But I wouldn't say everyone is a project manager. I mean, if you overarch the term of project manager, maybe, but it's definitely a little bit more sectionalised.
Okay. So, and did you need to have an architecture part one to get the job that you've got now?
No. It was a construction-related degree I think it was a good thing, definitely. Yeah. But I think the idea that Multiplex were putting out with the grad scheme is that, which I completely agree with, is you don't need a construction-related degree to be able to do construction. Yeah. Because I think the degrees are more often than not a waste of time.
Yeah.
And you don't really learn that much until you get into a practice.
And I think project management is the same in a lot of industries.
100%. There's technical knowledge that you need to know, but that technical knowledge you won't learn at uni. You'll learn it in practice. So if you're going to do it, you might as well go and work at a big company that deal with all of those different trades.
That's cool. So you get chartership?
Yep, I'm doing my CIOB at the moment, which is the Chartered Institute of Building, which is sort of just a broad scope of just managers, project managers. The company will allow you to do whatever chartership you want. So you can do your ARB, RIBA chartership. Yeah. You can do your ICE, which is engineering, or you could do your CIOB, plus many others. Some people in the grad cohort are going to be doing their architecture one. I'm personally not, because obviously that means going back to uni for another 2 years and doing a master's, or potentially doing it part-time for 3 years, but it's not really the route I'm looking at taking at the moment.
Yeah. So what about RICS accreditation?
Yes.
Did you get that as
well? I don't. I could.
Yeah.
I'd have to get it off my own back in terms of the company will support you and pay for your membership for one accreditation. If you want to go and do another one, you can. But you'd have to back it out yourself.
Okay. And what is it like being a grad in a big, prestigious construction company? Are there a lot of young people?
Yeah, it's brilliant. No, it's really good. It's really good. There's about 20 grads. Yeah. So going in with that amount of people who are the similar age to me was really good. We've all been spread out over a multitude of different projects. But yeah, everyone in my team's, I would say, I think everyone's probably average below 40, probably. There's oldest person above from me is 26.
Okay.
And it sort of ranges 30,
so it's
40.
Quite a fun group.
Very fun.
And do you go to site often?
We're based on site.
How does that work?
We have a site office.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
So that's literally...
Yeah.
That's
so
where you go to every day?
I work in Elephant and Castle.
Because there's a project?
Yeah, there's a live project going on.
So can you disclose anything about the project?
It's a fit-out of a university building within the Elephant and Castle scheme. So Multiplex have got the Elephant and Castle project as a whole, which is 3 residential towers, a small shopping retail area, and then they've got a massive university building for University of Arts. And within that contract, or a separate contract, but within that project, we are doing the fit-out. So another Multiplex team are building the shell and core of the building for UAL. Yeah. And then we're coming in as my team on the team I'm on, and we're doing the fit-out. That's really interesting. I didn't know that was even a way of working. Yeah. Okay, so can you tell us a little bit about why do you like the construction industry so much? Because I feel like not many kids grow up like, I want to get into the construction industry. Maybe you look up to a family member or something, but I don't know. It's not as people based. No. Well, you say that. Well, yeah. I think it's a very social industry. I think. I mean, for me, the main reason I love it is whenever you have a really long week, and this was present in my last job where it was a lot smaller projects, but still you'd work really hard, and at the end of months, potentially years, at the end of that, you'd have an actual project. You'd have a sort of building that you can actually walk around and experience, and other people can experience. That is sort of like a physical representation of your hard work. It's like a legacy. 100%. It's like a legacy, and it's really cool to be able to go around and. Obviously, I haven't had that point yet, but even Tunbridge Wells, there's a couple of buildings that I've worked on, and it's cool to be I had a part to play in that, which is quite cool. It's a very social industry. Obviously, you sort of rub shoulders with a lot of different people. We've got quite a big supply chain. We've got a lot of trades working on site at the moment, so you'll naturally meet a lot of people from many different backgrounds and many different demographics, which is really brilliant. It's just a great industry. I really, really love it. Yeah, no, I agree. How do you keep updated on different types of, I don't know, are you interested in different types of architecture or how it... Yeah, the industry as a whole, I've mainly through LinkedIn, I follow Builder Magazine. Yeah. Got the zine and obviously all those Architects Journal and all that, and it's just a little scroll on your phone, construction news. Yeah. Well, because, sustainable construction is huge at the moment. Massive. So that's something to always get a little bit excited about. Yeah, definitely. A lot of the buildings that are going up now are... Yeah. What's it like kind of incorporating sustainability and ESG into what you do at work every day? Is that a huge part of your role? For the company it is. Yeah. For my role it's not. The business embed CSG in everything it does. It's a massive part of our company.
Yeah.
Personally, I haven't really touched a lot of that. We've got sustainability managers that come in and sort of act as consultants and will sort of guide the project in the right way. I know that the project I'm working on has used material passports, which is basically a sustainable strategy, which is every single... We're only using it for our steels, but it's I'm not sure how I don't really know the ins and outs completely, but you have information recorded on a material with all the components, where they've come from, what they are, and then they'll be used in a building, and that will be stored. And then when the building's demolished, which it inevitably will be, when you take that down, because obviously we don't blow up buildings anymore, we take it down in a very orderly manner. Which is can then take those steels out.
Yeah.
People then can use your building as a donor building. Yeah. And then you can reuse those steels.
Interesting.
Yeah. So the project in Fetter Lane, which has used it for a lot more of their materials. Okay. But that's a really cool.
So that's a way to reduce embodied carbon.
Yeah, definitely. Well, there's Holborn Viaduct, just literally up the road. It's one of our projects, which we're doing that at the moment. It's in quite a few of our PCSAs, which is really cool.
I feel like the construction industry is really leading in that way, because by reducing embodied carbon, they're literally thinking about the before, the during of the building actually existing there and being used, and the after part of it. Definitely. Like, I feel like we don't really do that in other industries as much. We just think about the present moment and how much.
I think it's really important as well, because obviously construction industry is almost half of all release carbon
it's
from
everything.
the industry.
Yeah.
So obviously being part of a main contractor, which deal in a lot of the big buildings, you have a responsibility to sort of lead that as well as anyone in the industry.
Even though a lot of these buildings will be around for, over 100 years, I guess that's part of the whole legacy of big companies like that.
Definitely. And that's something that the company's trying to strive towards as well, which is adaptive reuse. So rather than knocking down old buildings and rebuilding these amazing new skyscrapers, which have got all of these amazing sustainable elements in, it's reusing the buildings and making them more sustainable, replacing the glazing with more sustainable windows or stuff like that. But just rather than, it's counterintuitive to knock down a building and then build it up and say it's a sustainable building. You've just ruined a building to build a building.
Materials.
Yeah, exactly.
So what kind of technology, how big is AI in your role?
In my role?
Or within the kind of firm as a whole? Like, how do you use it very often? Is it?
I don't. I mean, I use it as much as everyone does in terms of chat GPT here and there. But I personally, not for work, obviously.
For fun.
For fun. Obviously, I don't know the extent that the company uses it. Yeah. I'm not part of the document control and that. I know we're trying to incorporate it, but I don't really know how. It's definitely used in the industry. And I think actually more probably in architecture than construction. I think it will be really useful in construction rather than architecture would be sort of the planning side of things, like the really repetitive, really boring tasks that are sort of just entering numbers and sort of tracking. That would be really good to have that sort of tool. But design I think is a massive sort of area that AI can sort of blow up in, which is a good and a bad thing, I think.
You think it's a bad thing?
I don't think it's a bad thing. I think there's positives and negatives. I think a lot of architects, I think it's probably a fair 50-50 split between architects that see it as a threat and see it as a positive. Yeah. I think
there's a lot of context, though, to architecture.
100%. And I think that the architecture as a role has lost some of its sort of character in the last few years, or the last 10, 20 years. I don't personally know, but from sort of seeing what people are saying, I think AI obviously will be a really useful tool.
So you think that architecture's lost a bit of its character? Because it's...
Well, I think architects used to be the main drivers in projects. They used to be the project managers. They used to be the engineers. They had the visions. And I think now there's obviously your 1% architects, like, I don't know, obviously Zaha Hadid has passed away, unfortunately, but her company are very much like this is our project. Yeah. You guys have got to build it. But I think a lot of architecture firms are driven by the client and driven by regulation. And I think...
Yeah, it kind of caps your poetic license, your creativity.
But trying to work around that's another really interesting element. It's just adapting the role where needed. Yeah. And unfortunately, I think AI will take away a lot of the fun parts of the role, like the conceptual modelling and like the sort of spatial diagrams and sort of working out how's this going to look, what's the shape it's going to take. I think AI will take a lot of that away.
Did you notice that, when you did your part one... I think obviously it's completely different to what it was 30 years ago.
Yeah.
I know from interviewing various different architects, they say, oh, well, we used to have a pen, like a pencil and paper, and that's what it was. Like, I feel like that's kind of the almost when you romanticize architecture, like that is the basics of it. 100%. And now it's a lot more using all of these different softwares like CAD and I don't know all the different ones, but you know, and it kind of takes it away from its like fundamentalities.
100%. That's what I went into architecture thinking I was going to be doing. I thought I was going to be drafting up drawings, which I really loved doing.
Yeah.
And then in my third year, I was told, don't do drawings, use CAD. It would be better for your career, which is completely fair enough. And it was.
Yeah.
But for the main element of the sort of role that I found really interesting to be taken away, or being told that it was going to be taken away, was something that I was, maybe I don't want to be doing this.
Yeah.
But no, I mean, AI in general, amazing. Really useful. It's definitely going to be, it's not going to take away jobs. It's going to facilitate efficiency, which as a whole for the industry is brilliant. We're going to be able to use in smaller teams on projects. That means we're going to be having more projects, less time. We're going to be breaking ground quicker. It's going to be really, really good, in my opinion. Obviously, I'm not that educated in this area, so. Yeah,
but I think it's interesting to have like a kind of a young person come in and especially do the podcast, because obviously you're just starting your career now. So, you know, you're going to have all of these different visions of what the future of construction and architecture is. Whereas I think some of the other people that I interview, perhaps they're not as concerned about it. Or it's not something that they regularly think about, because it's probably not going to have a huge impact on them, on their careers. So yeah, it's good that you feel positive about it though, because
as an architect, I can feel very positive about it. Obviously, I can see why architects would feel slightly negative about it, but not as an architect, as
someone in the construction industry. So okay, that's your sort of vision for the future of the construction design engineering industry. Tell me what would you say is your most enjoyable aspect of your job currently? Like you said with the part one, that something you really enjoyed was doing the drawings. Is there something in particular that you know really grounds you in this role?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously I've moved away completely now from the drawing element and the design element. I'm doing a design manager role, or graduate design manager role, should I say, which is still, you know, associating with architects and reviewing drawings, but it's nowhere near the design side. The thing I really enjoy is going out on site. Obviously, being based on a live site, I'll spend a lot of the day still within our Revit model, looking at the building that I'm actually sat in at the same time. And the Revit model is sort of looking into the future. This is what it's going to be. Yeah. And it's trying to just sort of incorporate all the designs together and coordinate it. And it's sort of like, okay, well, I can't actually visualize this, so I'm not sure about this. All you've got to do is walk 5 minutes and you're actually in the building. Yeah. And you can sort of see it, and you can see the trade sort of building up what you've been looking at in the model. And that's just like a really...
That's amazing.
Yeah, it's a really cool part of the job. Yeah. I really enjoy that, being able to just sort of walk around what you're working in, and it helps visualize, definitely.
I mean, do you know if many other construction companies do have offices on site like that? Or
I'd say more or less all of them, unless all of the tier ones in London, definitely. I think if you're a construction company, over 10 people probably, you have a site office.
Does Multiplex have like a headquarters, or are they just...
Yeah, we've got a headquarters in City.
So after this project is complete, which, I mean, do you know how many years that will be?
It's a 2-year project. So I think it's got another 1.75 years.
So will you still be on the grad scheme then? How many years is this?
I won't be on this job. I'll still be on the grad scheme. It's a 2-year grad scheme. Yeah. I'm probably rotating off of this project in August, September. Okay. Where I'll get put on another job. Okay. With new people and new challenges, which will be really exciting.
That is really exciting.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah, nice. Okay, so let's go on to some more fun questions.
Ooh.
If you call them fun. We actually had... a question from a big fan of the podcast.
A guest question?
A guest question, yeah. And he just really wanted to know, what is your favourite fictional piece of architecture? Which I actually think is a really decent question.
Yeah.
Have you had a thought about it?
I have actually had a thought about it, and it's probably the biggest thinker I've had out of all of the questions, which is...
Really?
credits to Ed here. Credits to my biggest fan.
Yeah.
Ed Reed.
Yeah.
I think for me, I've never really had one that I knew of in my head. So I did a little bit of searching of films that I've watched recently and shows that I've watched recently. And one for me was when I watched Dune.
Yeah.
And I don't know what it's called.
You said that very American, Dune.
Dune. And when they're on Arrakis, and it's the main building in Arrakis, which is like this big sort of like ziggurat looking building. And I just thought it was really interesting, sort of ancient architecture that's still a little bit modern, and it's got these really cool sort of shapes. And it's, it's really interesting. It's all naturally lit, and it embodies the film quite well.
Does it remind you of any type of human architecture at all?
It gave me, obviously, ziggurats, so like ancient Aztec architecture, which is obviously what it's referring to. But it reminded me of most brutalist architecture, like South Bank Centre. I walked over that on the way here, and I was like, that's quite a cool comparison. Little bit like Falling Water, which is...
Bit like what?
Falling Water. It's one of Frank Lloyd Wright's old buildings. Just like a lot of like different big shapes hanging over, lots of cantilevers, which is really cool.
We're just looking at that now. Oh, that is really cool.
Yeah, I did one of my first year projects on that, which was... So,
I mean, like, how did you get into this kind of, like, how did you become knowledgeable about this kind of architecture?
Uni.
You weren't, like, aware of this?
No, no, actually, I wasn't, to be honest. I knew I liked architecture, but I think that's probably what a telltale sign for me was when I didn't go into being an architect, was it never really kept me up at night. I loved the design aspects, but, like, I enjoy the built environment as a whole, but it's never been something that's like, oh my God, I love the shape of these buildings, I love the feel of this stone. Like, it wasn't really something that really got me going. But I mean, I learned a lot of it at uni. We did a module on history of architecture and all these sort of design movements, which again was actually really interesting and definitely sort of fueled that fire. But I wouldn't say it's a hobby of mine currently. I like keeping up to date with the industry, and there's obviously a lot of cool buildings that are going up, and a lot of old buildings that are being reused, which I love because I really enjoy like period buildings. But I
think it's cool to sort of be interested in sort of ancient architecture and see how that feeds into modern architecture as well. Like in particular, I think some really cool stuff that I've been reading about recently.
What have you been reading about?
I'm reading a book by an engineer. Her name is like Roma Agrawal. I think I pronounced that correctly. And she does kind of go into like the more practical side of architecture and construction. So like literally how concrete is made. Yeah. And it doesn't sound very interesting, but it's
so interesting. That's the interesting bit about architecture, is the actual technical side.
The fact that, the Romans, they had all these different recipes they created the brick and they had ideas about how to create concrete, but nothing ever came together until they used the ash from Vesuvius. And then that is what made the sort of modern concrete that we have today, and it's really useful in a lot of structures like bridges and stuff you need to build underwater. Yeah, we've got a guest question here.
2 or 3 years ago, strong, and they can work out how they made concrete that lasted so long. And then I think like 2 or 3 years ago, they discovered that they had like different random sized bits of like aggregate and rock mixed into the normal concrete rock, which allowed them to reproduce the Roman concrete. And now we have concrete that was as strong as it was from all the way back then.
That's so cool.
Because it was lost. There was a lot of sort of intelligence about the construction industry that was lost at the end of the Roman Empire, and then we've sort of 100%. Been like building it back ever since. But that was a good answer to that question. Another fictional piece of architecture we had as a suggestion was in Interstellar, the room with the bookcases, at the end, where she's gone through, I think, is it a black hole or something? And has anyone seen Interstellar? Yeah, Gargantua. Yeah.
And
he's gone through, That was a good one. And another one was the moving staircases in
Harry Potter.
Just a classic.
But actually, before we end, I've got a question for you, Lily, if that's all right. So we previously mentioned that we met we were acquainted prior, but we met at uni.
Yeah.
And at that time, you were studying geography of all things.
Can you imagine?
And last time I saw you, I didn't know you were even interested in the space. You probably were, but we hadn't had that conversation. So where's that come from? I'm really interested.
Well, I think it was probably in the back of my head a little bit because my dad's in the construction industry, and he has been ever since he was a young adult. So I've always been interested in it, and his kind of enthusiasm has passed down to me a little bit. And I think that was solidified when I did my dissertation, which was on this huge regeneration project in Birmingham. And it was very important to me because I've got some family that my mum is from the Black Country. And so Birmingham was a bit of a home away from home. And we used to go to the markets there a lot, the bullring markets, and they were just a really interesting sort of eclectic mix of trades going on there, and it was really cool. And it was something that we did to get off campus and away from our little bubble that we were living in. And I became really involved in it and did my dis on the regeneration of the markets. And then I kind of became more interested in urban design and urban planning, and then leaving university, did a bit of travel, became more interested in types of architecture there. A good friend of mine who I travelled with, her dad's an architect. She's very interested in it. We both know her. We all know her, Rose. So I don't know. It kind of sparked something, and I want to pursue a career in urban design and construction. And yeah, it kind of fell together randomly. But
look at that.
But it's nice when that happens.
Yeah, 100%. When you find your way.
Exactly.
It's cool.
Yeah.
So what are you looking to get? Obviously, you said going into urban planning, master planning and stuff.
Yeah, I'd like to get RICS accreditation.
Oh, really?
Yeah, eventually. But obviously, it's like a long process, and I want to make sure I'm going for something, a role that is actually important to me and that I'm going to enjoy being in, rather than just. Yeah, it needs to be an informed decision.
Yep. Any leads yet?
Any what?
Any leads?
Yeah, a few leads. Yeah. It's looking positive. But I think, I mean, even just doing this podcast is very helpful because you find that, like, the more you talk about things and the more you actually get out and speak to people face to face, it inspires you a little bit. And it's quite difficult when you're looking for jobs to just be sat at home sort of behind a computer screen like this.
Describing your life.
Exactly. You forget about what the real world is like, and speaking to someone face to face really kind of grounds you there. So that's 100%. Me. Great. Well, awesome. I think we've done a really good job with this episode.
We'll have to cut some bits out.
Yeah, that'll be all right. That'll be fine. Just want to say a big thank you to the audience. They've tried really hard to be on their best behaviour, and they've actually done a pretty good job. Yeah. So, and I want to say a big thanks to Josh. A favourite guest of mine.
Oh.
Yeah. And I think he deserves a round of applause.
Can you please add in a massive round of applause?
We'll edit in it.
Stand at 5 minutes standing ovation that the sun dies cheering. Yeah. That would be cool. Brilliant.
I'll do that. Cool. So thank you all so much. And we will see you on the next episode of The London Architect. Bye-bye.